Need a holiday gift that will keep her sparkling all year long? Right now, Blue Nile, the original online jeweler, is offering 30% off select jewelry. With experts on hand 24/7 to provide guidance, you're sure to find the perfect piece. And now there's even more to love about shopping at BlueNile.com. For a limited time, get 36-month special financing on minimum purchases of $1,000. Restrictions apply. See BlueNile.com for details. That's BlueNile.com.
Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
In sports, the scoreboard doesn't tell the full story, but Netflix does. Stories about dads who happen to be world-class quarterbacks and a battle for the heart, soul, and direction of the multi-billion-dollar business of F1. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're brand new, Netflix has the stories for every type of fan. You can watch these incredible sports stories like Quarterback, F1 Drive to Survive, Untold, and many more now on Netflix.
Serie Chronicles is a Milan Chronicles production.
Hello and welcome to our latest edition of the Serie Chronicles Q&A podcast, where we get to your questions that you send us through the week. It's me, Nikki. I can't say my own name today. Me, Nikki Bandini, with Mina Rasuki alongside me, as always. Mina, I'm going to jump right in with the top question that's just disappeared off the Google sheet. Where's the questions gone?
They've gone onto the main page.
All right.
His organization has made it terrible for you.
Some confusion just now because our producer, who was being so organized that he took some questions out of our questions Google sheet, moved them into our runtime Google sheet, and I was in the wrong Google sheet. We're back on track. Mina, does the loss of Victor Osimhen remove Napoli from the title race, or does it just bring Inter more into it? Can Milan hang on for the duration? That's from Andy Heffler, Manchester. I'm trying not to laugh now because we've just had a conversation before we recorded this about the lack of sirens in the background where I live, and immediately there's been a siren now, so all of my big talk has been ruined. Nevertheless, chaotically, I get you to that question, Mina. Does the loss of Osimhen take Napoli out of the title race, or does it just bring Inter more into it? Can Milan hang on for duration? From Andy Heffler, Manchester. We kind of talked about this a bit on our main show this week, but maybe we can address this more directly. Mina, what do you think?
Even with Osimhen, I was struggling with Napoli in the title race. I thought they would always be protagonists because I'm a little bit in love with Luciano Spalletti. Maybe because, not usually, but maybe because I feel like he's faced a lot of backlash. And the fact that he's sitting there being worried about seeing Inter fans, like he built those foundations. So I'm not entirely sure why he's been subjected to so much hate. I get it with Totti and Roma, but he's a marvelous, marvelous tactician, and they are a marvelous team. But I do think they are dependent, sadly, on Anguissa and on Osimhen. And I think losing Osimhen for potentially up to February, and Anguissa for a month as well for the Africa Cup of Nations is huge. And not just from what they bring from a tactical and sporting point of view, but also from a mentality point of view. I mean, I mentioned this in the main podcast, but they never give up, and they are desperate for the results, and they have a warrior-like mentality. Anguissa's come from the Premier League. Osimhen is a player that really wants to show you the beauty of his play, and he's just somebody that's really loves to play football. So you see that at all times. He plays with a smile on his face, always trying to win. And it's a huge loss to lose him, and also the way to lose him as well with the fracture on his cheek. You really felt for him because he's somebody who's being watched by Real Madrid right now. He is being watched by some major clubs because everyone can see that this is a guy that loves his football and never gives up. And losing him is obviously going to have a huge dent. It's like Fiorentina losing Vlahovic. But again, I'm not entirely sure that Milan can hang on either, because I wonder whether, having to rotate the team as much as they have, whether it's all going to catch up to them eventually, whether, they started the season really well last year and then fell off too. For me, I'm struggling to see right now, and I couldn't have said this before, it's only recently that I'm saying this, that it seems to be Inter, because I'm yet to see a side that's as complete, that has the squad depth, that has the unpredictability of their tactics, that has alternatives in terms of subs and men and formations and versatility, physical, complete, ball playing. It's got to be Inter, right?
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating. And I'm trying not to sort of jerk my knee, even though we enjoy doing that sometimes, having our knee-jerk reactions. But I think it's fascinating how much that sort of one weekend can make a difference, because 7 points is a lot, right? Like 7 points.
Yeah.
We've been saying it's early in the season and 7 points you can make up, but it's a lot. And to get those 3 points back on both of the top two teams at the same time really did feel like it changed that picture in a hurry, because suddenly 4 is, you can make that up in 2 games. They don't even have to lose any of them. They could draw those 2 games and you can make that up. So definitely it's a huge weekend for bringing Inter back into the title. I think that much is beyond doubt. Does it remove Napoli from the title race? To me, it's a no, because I think as long as you've got the best defence in the league, which so far they do, you can win the league. That's on its own a good enough starting point. When you've got best defence in the league and you've also still got options up front that include Insigne, Lozano, Mertens, Petagna. You see how I struggle to even say it with Petagna? I'm too harsh on him. I actually like him sort of
Politano
in his character, but I'm not convinced by him as a footballer. I think you can't say that team is suddenly out of the equation at all for me. But it's certainly a huge blow. And it's really hard not to sort of just feel, as you say, as a person for Osimhen, because, players get these reputations, right, as injury prone. And in some cases, that's probably maybe even justified, right? If it's a player who's blown out the same knee 3 times, you think, well, there probably is some damage there that's been done now, and it's hard to sort of ever be confident that knee's going to be fine. These injuries Osimhen has had are so incidental. It's literally a clash of heads with Skriniar that causes this injury, and it's not a deliberate foul. It's not something that's happened on purpose, but that's not because you're injury prone. That's because someone's head smashed into your head. And what are you going to sort of put that down to? Bad luck is all you can put it down to. But he's had some really bad luck with injuries now, 2 seasons in a row. And yeah, it's a big blow to Napoli's title challenge. It's especially so because as we talked about on the main show this week, the injury comes at a time when there's a hugely concentrated run of matches. And then these are Africa Cup of Nations. So you're going to lose a lot of games with him if he does go to the Cup of Nations. But it doesn't take them out of the title race for me. To answer the question directly, no, it doesn't take them out of the title race. Even if you did drop some points in this period, how many points are you going to drop? He'll be back if he comes back in February. Is it really so many that you then can't make something up? As for Milan, can they hang on for the duration? I think on that one, the proof will be in the pudding, because last season they were here, right? Like last season at this time of year, they were leading the way and then they didn't last the duration. So you have to prove it to me. But I think we can say that they are better set up in some ways than they were a year ago. Tonali is better than he was, so you've got more depth in midfield. You've got Giroud added to the attack, so you've got another option up front. Okay, you lost Çalhanoğlu, but to me that's made up for by the progression of someone like Rafael Leao being better than he was last year. So again, can they? Yes. Will they? Different question. And I'm looking forward to finding out, I think is the answer for me.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, but I actually think that we don't know quite yet, even though they both suffered their first loss. I don't know who is going to recover. I think that shows you a lot, because sometimes we've seen that with Milan, if they do hit a hurdle, it might tend to last for a little bit, or at least that's Stefano Pioli's sort of career history is that they have a wobble and then it takes them a while to get out of it. I don't know if this is considered a wobble or it's just, it's just one loss and it's not more than that. I'm interested to see how they recover from this, because I wonder for Napoli whether or not they've given you the blueprint on how to defeat them. And I think that if you do look at that team and you see just how much Inter pushed to get an extra inch, and force Napoli to sort of fall apart on a mental level, whether that's something other teams can do. I've been waiting for someone to do that, and I don't think any side they faced have. And I wonder whether now people will have more confidence to go to Napoli and try to take them on. And they do have Lazio next week. So I'm interested to see how that works out. We got another question that's similar because it's on Juve. And actually, and I thought that we can go to that one. And Vivek says that considering that Milan, Napoli and Inter seem like they will be the top three this season. So there's already an assurance there that they're going to be top three. How big would the consequences be financially for Juve if they don't finish top four? Would they be forced to sell the likes of Locatelli and Chiesa? I think someone's dreaming of it. Or maybe not.
I think it's an assumption too far to say that Milan, Napoli and Inter will all be in the top three. It's certainly right now.
Really?
I think right now they look the most likely. But Milan, it's still 13 games played. There's 25 matches left to play.
Yeah,
if you're asking me for my
prediction... Come on, they're the strongest teams, no?
If you're asking me for my prediction, yes, I expect they'll be in the top three. But I don't think you can call it automatic. I think there's a chance that one of them goes into a run of bad form for any reason. It could be injuries. It could be something else. You don't know. So it's too soon for me to say they're guaranteed top three, but I'll accept the premise that they're the most likely. And if they do all, then the fourth spot is terrifyingly competitive if they do, because you've got Juventus, who certainly expect to be there. You've got Atalanta, who are really not dropping much off, are they? I've sort of said a few times earlier in the season I wasn't sure if they could keep it up for another year, but by and large they are. By and large they are still at that level. You've got Roma, who I have my doubts, but certainly that's the ambition to get back in there. You even have, as well as Lazio, you even have Fiorentina all of a sudden starting to creep up the table and just nudge at that door a little bit. So it's certainly got the potential to be a really, really fascinating fight for fourth place. Do I think it would force Juventus to sell the likes of Locatelli and Chiesa? No. I think those are probably the two players who, come hell or high water, the club would not sell. I mean, unless I would say Locatelli is almost impossible after one season. It's too soon. They got him at such a good price. There's still parts of that to pay. I can't see it happening. Chiesa, I could only see happening if he individually was so badly behaved about it, was like, I'm not tolerating this, I'm leaving, that he could force their hand. But I really doubt it again. I think he's very much the player who the club is aware they need to build around. So I just don't see that happening. And truth be told, when times have been tough financially for Juventus, while they're not one of these ownerships that pours limitless money into the club, Exor, the Agnelli family, are one of those ownerships who tend to find some money behind the sofa when they need it, right? Like, they will they'll do another fundraise, they'll do another thing, they'll get some money into the club to keep what needs to be kept. Other players may have to get sold, but those two I can't imagine it happening.
I mean, in terms of cash injection, they are like you said, I think they're very good at that. And they've already put quite a lot of money into Juve. And there's 400 million that will be put in now over the winter transfer market. Not for the market, just over this period of time, which will now be received. I think, if anything, they're a team that will probably spend money to try to get back, but they do need to obviously get rid of players like Ramsey. I don't know what's going to happen when it comes to Rabiot, what they think of him and what they don't think of him. There's been a lot of mistakes that they've obviously made, like sometimes, like reading on Twitter yesterday, seeing Joao Cancelo and then knowing that you have Danilo, it's like, what just happened? But I don't think that in despite everything that they may go through and they may not make top four, which I still think is unlikely, and I don't know why I think that. I don't know whether it's me being somebody that just thinks that I trust Allegri so much that I can't see that happening. But it won't be Locatelli and Chiesa. They'll let go of Alvaro Morata. They might let go even of Dybala. But I think that if there is anyone that they will sell to try to get capital gains, it will be Kulusevski, for the simple sake that he would command some money. And they don't feel like it would hurt as much as giving up somebody like Locatelli and Chiesa.
I think if a really high-profile one had to go, it would probably be reluctantly, I think still, because they'd never get back the transfer fee they paid for him, but I think it would be De Ligt, because it's still a big salary and something you might be able to get as some sort of cash from. I can't see it being Locatelli and Chiesa. I just can't.
Also, no, Locatelli and Chiesa don't want to leave. Chiesa's very happy where he is. He has got no interest in moving, and he feels like he's developing nicely. De Ligt, incidentally, I don't know, because he's obviously being repped by Mino Raiola, who likes to move his players on. He is very happy where he is, and he feels like he's learning a lot as well. He feels his girlfriend is very settled there. He's very happy with his lifestyle there. He's close to De Vrij as well, who's in Milan. So I don't know from that point of view whether he wants to move right now and change everything up with it being so close to the World Cup. So these are all interesting questions that you have to think about, because players have to be willing to move on and want to, engage or whatever it is, because Dybala turned down Manchester United. So, it can happen. So it's tough to sell players if they don't want to go, but it's about obviously making smarter decisions going forward. But here's the thing, Nikki, do you see them finishing outside the top four?
I don't, honestly.
It's a possibility.
It's possible because, as I've said, the race is so competitive. It really is going to be a furious fight for that top four. And as I've sort of said as well, I don't completely rule out anyone slipping out of that. But I think in the end, my prediction is that it would be the four clubs mentioned here who all get in. I think it will be Milan, Inter, Napoli and Juventus. But even saying that leaves Atalanta out, and Atalanta are playing well. So it's not a foregone conclusion at all. It's going to be a serious fight. All right, one more question for this week's Q&A podcast. Mina. Oh, I like this one and I hate it. What would your starting... I hate it because it's going to make me think about this whole playoff. I don't want to think about it. I want to bury my head in the sand and not even consider that Italy could miss the World Cup. But
ostrich time.
You're right, exactly. Just head in the sand for the next 4 months. What would your starting 11 be for Italy's World Cup qualifying playoff matches? I'm hoping Spinazzola is back for the playoffs, playing next to Bonucci, Chiellini, and maybe Bastoni. In midfield, I'd go with Pellegrini, Verratti, and Barella. Up front, Zaniolo, Chiesa, and Immobile. The question comes from Jeffrey Garofalo, who is in Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, that is such a good question. And I'm like, I don't want to think about it because I agree with you, but I like the team that you mentioned. I'm not going to lie, except clearly I think you're a Roma fan for the simple sake that you talk about how needing Spinazzola, but then I think maybe that's normal. Then you mentioned Zaniolo and Pellegrini. Again, I love Pellegrini, but I probably wouldn't have Zaniolo. That's the only one that I would disagree with you. Interesting to see you've left out Insigne and Jorginho. My producers told me you're a Napoli fan. So, wait, hold on. You're a Napoli fan and you haven't included Insigne? Are we soulmates?
It speaks volumes.
Oh, we're soulmates. Yeah. Call me. I'm joking. Okay. Right. But that does speak volumes, doesn't it? I mean, for you not to include your captain, my captain, that is, that's interesting. And also, you didn't include Di Lorenzo. You're a good little fan. You really don't like your own players. So here's my choice. I would have Spinazzola, Bonucci, Chiellini, Calabria. I'm going to say that. I think he's just fabulous. In midfield, I would have Locatelli over Verratti. I know that everyone loves Verratti. I'm not a fan as much as everyone else is. And also, I think it's a better mix if I do include Pellegrini, and I love Pellegrini. And I just feel like with him and Locatelli, I think it works better. And I would also have Barella, but I don't know about leaving Jorginho out. So maybe it would be Jorginho, Locatelli, and Barella. I think that's what I'd probably go with. Up front, I wouldn't actually mind putting, I would definitely have Chiesa. I would definitely have Berardi. And this is the interesting question is, do we have Immobile up front, but he doesn't work well with Chiesa. So then that's a problem. And the front is where I have an issue because there are some really good players there, like in the sense that there's no great striker, but I do like Pellegrini and I can't fit him into my midfield. So I don't know whether I would have like him in the trequartista role sort of behind the front two, but then that'd be changing too much. So the front line is where I have issues. I know I won't put in Zaniolo. I do like Insigne and Berardi with somebody like Immobile out front, but where's Chiesa and all of that? So I have no idea. What would you choose?
Well, I've been trying to work out exactly what Jeffrey's sort of shape is for this formation. Because when I first saw it, I saw Bonucci, Chiellini, maybe Bastoni, and I thought, okay, is that a back three? But looking at it, I guess with that group, maybe you're moving Bastoni to fullback because you've got 11 players there. Assuming you're picking a goalkeeper, which I'm nobody's mentioned, but I think it's Donnarumma's the obvious choice, right? Like no one's fighting that choice. Then you could do that. I mean, look, we are in the era, aren't we, of hybrid formations and back fours that actually are back threes when you have the ball and these sorts of things. But I think for
but who's on the right? There's too many left players.
Well, that's what I was trying to work out.
Spinazzola, Bastoni.
You could swap Spinazzola to the right. I think he's played there before, but I would rather have him on the left. So for me, I think I'm probably looking at the same back four that you are, Mina, because I actually do want Calabria at right back, which is something that Mancini hasn't done a lot of. Obviously, I want Spinazzola at left back. I don't know if we can still be looking at Bonucci and Chiellini. Maybe it should be Bonucci and Bastoni, although I don't know, when it comes to it, Bastoni's more used to playing in a back three. I don't know, maybe it is.
No, not for the playoff. Not for the playoff. Yeah. Change it for the World Cup, not for the playoff.
Yeah, I do see where you're coming from. So let's call it a back four. The midfield three, I am always going to have Jorginho in there. We've just been talking about this with our producer in between sections. I still think he was, despite the way the year ended, one of the most brilliant footballers in the world this year. I think if you go back and watch those games of the Euros, but really watch Jorginho, you see that Italy win back possession so much because of him, and not in an obvious way, not in a Chiellini sliding tackle way, in a consistently intercepting the ball and breaking up opposing attacks way. And I think that's so important in that midfield. I think, honestly, for me, the best midfield three is still the same midfield three that we had at the Euros, which is Verratti, Barella, and Jorginho. And I understand everyone's sort of itching and wanting to change because of the last few results, but I think that's still the best midfield three.
Not Locatelli.
Locatelli's brilliant. I expect you to use him within the 90 minutes. I think Mancini... Look, I think we are in an era, by the way, where your 11 is not everything anymore. I think that... is so true now. You have 5 substitutions. And I think that everything we've been talking about every week with Simone Inzaghi reaffirms it. Like, your management goes way beyond the first 11. And I think Locatelli is definitely part of the group. But is he the starting group? I'm not sure. I've even been wrestling as I'm talking about this, Mina, and I can't believe I'm even thinking this. But I'm wrestling within myself with whether the forward who I feel most sort of is important to Italy, which is Federico Chiesa. Part of me is thinking maybe he should be a last 30 minutes player. Maybe he should be allowed
to
just be brilliant for half an hour. And maybe that's when you get the very most out of him. In which case, is the starting three... I know everyone wants to torch him, but I like Immobile in the centre of my three because I think he works his bum off for the team. And then is your starting three, if you're going to do that, Berardi on the right, Pellegrini to the left. I mean, not like wingers, but in a sort of 4-3-2-1 type shape. Maybe. I do think Berardi and Chiesa is a struggle for me because they both really do their best on the right. if it's not that, you could certainly go with Insigne on the left and I wouldn't hate it. You could certainly go with Chiesa on the right and I'd like it because I think Chiesa is better than Verratti. I just think I'm struggling with which way around do I think it's going to be more impactful. Assuming they're both going to play at some point in the 90 minutes, do I think that it makes more sense to have Verratti start and Chiesa be the substitute just because of how they influence the game? Maybe. But it's a complicated question. And I think if I was Mancini, I would not be sleeping from here to March. So I'm glad it's someone else's problem.
I think, you hit the nail on the head when you said there's no more just starting 11. Yeah. So I think what we need to look at is sort of like a game for 50, do it a little bit like Allegri does. He does 70-20, right? Mm. But we play it sort of, 60 minutes change, yeah, or whatever you like. But if I'm playing Berardi and Immobile, because I would, and not like if I'm playing Immobile, I'm not playing Chiesa. Just remember that, yeah. So Berardi, Immobile, let's say Insigne or Pellegrini, then I would have Locatelli in my midfield. And then for changes, I also really love Pessina. So I'm like, when you think of your midfielders and you think there's just so much talent, and there is a part of me that thinks Zaniolo, if he can actually start producing, and maybe not that he's not producing, but I do have issues sometimes with his attitude.
I don't trust him.
He doesn't have a bad attitude or anything like that. But there is a part of me that doesn't trust him. Exactly. I trust Chiesa to give you everything he has until the last moment. And Chiesa for me is that player, like, that sounds so awful when you speak of super subs, but Carlos Tevez was a super sub, some great players, by the way, Luis Muriel is like the world's greatest super sub, right? And Chiesa coming on and giving you everything for 30 minutes and being so dynamic against a tired defense would work wonders. So I wonder if we can just, then switch it up and take off Immobile, bring on Bernardeschi, who seems to be much better in an Italian national team shirt than anything else. Play with a more false nine and have Chiesa be your man, like just, running everything, and then have Verratti capable in midfield as well, But I do like the partnership. Yeah.
I was going to say, I think the thing with Chiesa that is buzzing in my head that's complicated, because again, I don't want anyone hearing this to misunderstand me. I think he's Italy's best forward in terms of talent. So it's really not not thinking he should be in the starting 11 for talent.
No, it's not about that. It's about this game plan.
Right. And the thing that's in my head is you're going to use all of your changes. And if you're going to use all of your changes, when do I want to be absolutely certain that Chiesa is on the pitch? I want him on the pitch in the 90th minute. Because if it's the 90th minute and we need a goal, I need him to be on the pitch. So in some ways, it's almost like a guarantee, doing it this way around, that he's going to be on the pitch at the end. It's a weird way of thinking about it, but that is a bit of how I'm thinking about it.
Especially if there's extra time as well or anything like that. God, you just want Chiesa there. You know what I mean? Mm. And the thing is also like Italy play, people, if they are getting angry about this, but you need to have if you're holding a possession sort of like a Barcelona type team, then you need to have fewer vertical points. Immobile is a vertical point, and so is Chiesa. And so is Spinazzola. And so there's a point of, you have to balance it perfectly, which is why for me, Immobile and Chiesa don't work. But I want Immobile because I think him and works so well with like Berardi and Insigne in the sense that they build play together. And if you want Berardi and Insigne, then you need Chiesa as well, rather than Immobile, because I think, again, you build play together. So I don't know. But for me, I find it tough, despite the fact that I do have several issues with Insigne in general. I do think he's brilliant for the way that Italy play their football. And so, again, it depends on how you play your football. And I think that for him and for Berardi, they're essential. They're not necessarily my picks overall if I'm choosing my own team and my own club. Chiesa is my first pick in every situation possible, But sometimes when you are building a style of play and you need somebody to interact with you or whatever it is, then you have to choose different players for the style of play to progress and to be perfect. And you can't have two vertical points up front. So that's why you need to choose between what you're going to go for, a striker or Chiesa. And then essentially you want both, right? So maybe give each of them 45 minutes and see what happens.
I think there's actually one last thought on that, actually, with you saying about Insigne, is that one of the best things that happened at the Euros was Insigne and Spinazzola and how well they were dovetailing together. So that's another thing to think about, that individual relationships.
you're so right. That quality that they had and the understanding that they had is what makes the difference. And that Bonucci, Chiellini, which is why I'm reluctant to break them up just yet. But anyway, that's all we have time for on the Serie A Chronicles Q&A. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. Please keep bringing them in because we do have a lot of fun discussing them and trying to answer them as comprehensively as required. Get your questions in on Twitter at Serie A Chronpod with the hashtag ChroniclesQ&A. Subscribe to the Serie A Chronicles YouTube channel for clips of the show, and then you can see us in all our glory. And find both of us on Twitter at Nikki Bandini and at Mina Rizuki. Leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. And please consider supporting the show, if possible, at serieachronicles.com/supporter. Thanks for listening. Ciao for now.
Smashed it.
Whoop, whoop.
That was a fun Q&A. I like those ones. Good questions. Should I pick that up or do you want me to do it from the beginning? What's easier for you, Sam? I can do it from the beginning. Yeah. Okay. All right. You just leave it in. It's the Google sheet. Some confusion.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.